My name is Do Not Obey, and let's get started. Let's get it.
Me to ask Senor M what's really hidden in Antarctica, and he didn't answer right away. He said because Antarctica isn't hiding something new, it's hiding something very old. He told me the ice isn't the point. He said the ice is a seal. He said long before modern nations, before maps, before recorded history, he said there were structures there, not cities like we imagine, but stations. He said that's why so many stories keep repeating: military expeditions that abruptly end, bases that officially don't exist, and aircraft that report impossible readings, and explorers who describe movement beneath the ice. Senor M said those weren't accidents. He called them interruptions. He said what's buried there isn't alien in the sci-fi sense. He said it's specifically interdimensional beings that don't live in our layer of reality full time. He said they don't conquer with weapons, they influence through pressure, dreams, and disorientation. He reminded me that ancient civilizations warned about this exact thing. Sumerian tablets talk about, quote, watchers beneath the earth. Hebrew texts speak of sealed places meant to remain untouched. Even Plato described a frozen remnant world tied to Atlantis. Different cultures, same warning. The reason Antarctica matters now, he said, isn't discovery, it's disturbance. Every time the ice is drilled, scanned, or pierced, he said something will respond. Senor M said this once, and I will not forget it. Some doors were frozen for a reason. Not everything hidden is meant to be found.
Following footage is not AI.
A 60-foot cryptid that the Japanese spotted in the early 2000s and dubbed the name Ninyan, which means human. For this thing being 60 feet or larger, there was a treaty signed on Antarctica that there is nobody that's allowed to make claims on the territory, which Germany absolutely tried to during the Nazis during the Cold War. They tried to send an expedition out there called New Schwabenland. However, to English, it's called New Swabia. America obviously responded with Operation High Jump.
Strangely enough, there's left in the world today an area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being.
Talking about this cryptid that was allegedly found in 1959. In 2001, a Japanese research vessel came across it. Oh shit! Now in 2007, the United States accidentally came across this as well. This creature would only come out the water, take a look, and go back under. For not being a hostile threat or anything, it's still pretty scary to see a giant creature that you call Ninyan human. Now in 2017, fishermen caught something that highly resembles Ninyan. Watch this.
Humanity have accidentally unleashed an apex predator in Antarctica? On February 13th, 2021, a post popped up on a Google Earth thread appearing to show what looked like a giant spider in a Google Earth image of Antarctica. And a user with the name Son of Antanon showed up claiming to be the foremost expert on the subject, even going as far as to post these pictures of a commemorative plaque and wall clock, proving that his father was indeed stationed as a medical doctor at McMurdo Base in Antarctica. If these videos about the paranormal, supernatural, secret, hidden history interest you, click the link in my bio and subscribe to my brand new YouTube channel. Antanon claims that for an 11-month period in the 90s, his father was the sole medical doctor at McMurdo Research Base in Antarctica. He would pretty regularly accompany scientists and armed soldiers on expeditions that would routinely take 5-mile detours around certain areas. And in certain instances, while taking these detours, he thought he could make out the outline of buildings in these areas. He said the site that they most regularly had to detour around was roughly 30 miles south and 10 miles east of his location, which is here. During this thread, one of the other Anons in the chat started doing some Google Earth snooping in that exact area and found this bizarre giant monolith with the bottom half blurred out. The doctor befriended a 10-year veteran of the site, and once they were a little bit closer, he asked him, "Hey, why do we avoid those areas?" But the doctor just went pale and told him to shut up and then reported him to his commanding officer. Since Antanon's dad was the only medical doctor on site, he was also the pathologist, so the person that takes care of the bodies. And he was becoming very suspicious because he really didn't think this would be as big of a part of his job as it ended up being. There were a lot of casualties and some really strange injuries, like fully severed limbs and bodies found in half. But conveniently, since the remains were almost always frozen, he was always instructed to list the cause of death as hypothermia. He did try to go about it the right way. He tried talking to people, but either they knew nothing or they would just clam up and report him, so he basically just started rifling through people's shit, which usually I'm against, but at this point I'm all for it. The dude's an absolute mad lad. And if you don't think this is the absolute perfect stock photo for this next segment, you're crazy and I don't care. So while he was rifling through the workstation of one of the higher level researchers, he found a drawer full of journals. And these journals were full of information about what Antanon would call striders. From what he could tell, these creatures were found while the researchers were taking bore samples, which is when they drill big chunks of the ice out. Of course, they thought these creatures were dead because they were surrounded by ice that was at least hundreds of thousands of years old. But of course, upon thawing them out, a couple of them animated and violently escaped and had since become a huge nuisance for anyone or anything operating within that area of the research base. Now, Antanon's dad would go on to discover a lot more about these spiders, and it kind of seems like they're just one of many entry points into why Antarctica is so secretive.
It's nighttime, and temperatures were below freezing. Floodlights cut through the darkness and bounced off white water and drifting ice. And then, it surfaced. Witnesses described an enormous mass, smooth, pale, the color of ice-glazed skin. At first, they thought it was a whale surfacing to breathe. But whales don't have shoulders, and they definitely don't have arms. The Ningen supposedly stretched between 60 and 90 feet in length. Not coiled like a serpent, not angular like a shark, but more like a person stretched to impossible proportions. It moved with slow, deliberate motions before slipping beneath the surface without a splash. And where the head should have been, some witnesses claimed they saw eyes. Dark, expressionless, set into a face that looked unsettlingly human. The story didn't hit mainstream media. Instead, crew members traded stories between ships, research staff traded rumors in ports, and eventually the accounts leaked into the public through small Japanese paranormal publications. One magazine in particular, known as MU, helped shape the myth by publishing claims, sketches, and second-hand reports. From there, the internet picked it up like driftwood. Forums dissected grainy photos. Blogs posted sonar screenshots that seemed to show a pale, shapeless mass hovering beneath an ice shelf. And suddenly, the Ningen had crossed the boundary between whispered maritime rumor and full-blown aquatic cryptid. But the strangest detail wasn't its size. It wasn't the face, or the arms, or the unsettling way it surfaced only at night. It was where these sightings occurred. Almost every report placed the creature near Antarctica.
I wasn't supposed to show this. We just crossed the ice wall, and this temple is not human. Look at the bones. Look at the doorway. This is buried under Antarctica. This chamber goes down at least 40 feet. Skulls all around, and this golden cobra in the center. People worship this. You see that? That's a global map. But this temple predates civilization. That's not decorative. The cobra is emitting light. The map is cracking. This isn't a temple, it's a system. Look at the alignment. That circular mechanism under the floor lines up with the continents. This was built before recorded history. If this activates, This changes everything we know. The place is engineered, not random, not symbolic. The world map carving, the skull chamber, this cobra altar. And look at those figures above the crocodile. They built this to be seen from the sky. That helicopter light, it lines up perfectly. This isn't legend. Cross the ice wall, and this temple is buried under Antarctica. Look at the spine in the wall. That map, it's global. That sarcophagus, it's not modern. And down here, skulls everywhere. A golden cobra in the center. This is not mythology. This is architecture. These figures aren't human. Look at the scale. They built this to be seen from above, like something was landing here.
If you see this ship, get away immediately, as you are not supposed to be there and they won't let you leave once they've known you've seen it. People were terrified after a woman on a cruise through Antarctica filmed a 3-mast ship with no lights and no visible crew, with Antarctica having no ports, no trade routes, and no civilization, meaning there's zero reason for any ship to be in those waters, let alone one that looks like it belongs in the 1800s. Haunting reports from experts are claiming it's named Bark Europa, built in 1911, with every other ship from that era either in a museum or at the bottom of the ocean, but this for some reason is still sailing, with records showing it has been going to Antarctica every single year for the last 26 years, and no one can explain why a 114-year-old ship keeps going back to the same empty frozen continent to find something authorities are claiming are not there. But it gets much stranger as the ship is listed as serving under the Navy during World War II, with people on the ship listed as trainees in official documents, and they are required to work the ship, making this a battle operation that is still running. Now, Bark Europa is a real ship, but there's a lot of speculation on what this is for.
Big right there. So let's see what it is. Oh, there is another air balloon. What? I can't understand. What is that thing? What the heck? Ah! This is a monster head!
What actually looks like some sort of humanoid creature can be seen in the video. I have no idea if this is some sort of alien humanoid creature or what the heck is this, but I found little information about this video. Check this out, this is really creepy.
I just cannot believe my eyes! Guys! Oh my gosh. That's a monster head. Look, that is his eyes, his giant mouth. That's his head. Or maybe there is a whole body.
So I'm going to show you the video of these helicopters flying around this thing, and then you tell me what you think.
By 18-foot door. He tries different ways with his fingers, and suddenly there is a sound. This gigantic door begins to move, and it's moving toward him. And he realizes, my God, this thing is 23 feet deep, 17, 18 feet high. This is the door. And it's made out of something like a black obsidian, solid black.
What did he tell you at this point, what he thought that he was looking at? Is this man-made, or is this extraterrestrial? Is this something that he's assessing?
At that time, I don't think that he had been assigned a category for the investigation.
Right.
The door has come out. If you didn't know what you were doing, you would probably be killed by the door, is what he said. And when he gets in now where the door was and gets further, the temperature is 69 degrees Fahrenheit. It's 42 degrees below zero outside. And he said, what is sustaining this? What are we in? And this is now the unfolding of the film that I did, Antarctica, Alien Secrets Beneath the Ice. He was there for many weeks. And he had, however they were doing it, he had different assignments with direction once he was in.
Well, wasn't he told, well, let me jump in here. I'm trying to get inside of his head because he's there to extract a couple of people, right?
An archaeologist and a language expert are there and have been there for a long time, and he is there to take out the language specialist.
Right.
He knew that if he stayed on a hallway that he was supposed to come, and he had various things that had been told to him. And when he started down a specific ramp and he turned around, he's now looking at the back of this gigantic black door. It hadn't occurred to him when he came in. He's looking for this ramp that is going to take him into this facility, which I'm going to tell you about. But he turned around, and that was, he said, one of the most stunning moments in his career. Because on the inside of this gigantic mobile door was the black sun that Hitler put on everything.
Anybody who wants to know about Antarctica, consider a couple of facts. That treaty, there's not one nation in the world that says, no, we want to explore Antarctica. The biggest military expedition in the history of the world was funded, and Admiral Byrd was the top man. But then he ends up getting a radio signal, but it's not from the command center. It is from an unidentified being. He also ends up seeing two UFOs that are not using any understood means of propulsion.
That's a good point. The nations of the world hardly agree on anything, but there's one thing they agree on. Oh, you can't go to Antarctica.
What do you think? A group of scientists went to Antarctica, start finding pieces of artifacts. That was proof showing a civilization was once there or still there. And to do an experiment, they went to Africa and got these people and brought them back to Antarctica to see if they can survive in these harsh weathers. To their surprise, these Africans adapted to the cold, even enjoyed swimming in the waters without getting sick. Their children was being born with colored, beautiful eyes, and they also started making these statues, putting them by the water that was made out of wood. And when they asked where the wood come from, they will never disclose that information. But the question is, why put the statues by the water? What and who was they worshipping? What was they swimming with inside the water? Somewhere was they swimming to, but question where the trees came from. Antarctica, cold weather, do not have plush trees to make these statues. Living situation in Antarctica is horrible, but they was thriving through everything. Did they have help from aliens or the ancient people that scientists can never see? After many years, a group of scientists came to Antarctica with smallpox. Most of the indigenous natives passed away, but the majority of them disappeared, not knowing where they went. The remaining scientists packed up and left years. Later, someone reported seeing someone with pale white skin, white hair walking through the snow. I feel like there's a whole civilization there, and the remaining Africans knew about it and went where these aliens or other being lived and crossbreed with them. And I feel like us, the public, will never find out what's in this deep black hole that group of scientists around the world is trying to see.
Oh my god, they're huge. Easy.
If this footage is real, then someone helped these things survive, and that's the part nobody talks about. So here's the backstory that keeps popping up in old accounts from the early 1900s. There was a man living far from society, deep in the mountains, wealthy, educated, completely obsessed with ancient predators. He believed werewolves weren't monsters. He believed they were a hidden species on the edge of extinction. Instead of hunting them, he captured them. According to scattered journals and local rumors, he took them when they were young, raised them in isolation, studied them, treated them like pets, but not in any normal way. He controlled them through food, and not animal food, human meat. That was the key. It kept them calm, loyal, dependent. People began disappearing near his land, travelers, drifters, anyone who wouldn't be missed. The man documented everything, growth patterns, intelligence, behavior. He believed he was mastering something ancient. But predators don't stay owned forever. One winter, the property went silent. No fire, smoke, no lights, no man. Locals never found a body. Just tracks leading into the mountains. And here's what messes with me. If those creatures learned from him about humans, about hiding, about patience, that would explain everything we're seeing now.
Of 1937, a military expedition vanished beyond the Antarctic shelf. No final report, no names recorded, only reels of damaged film recovered decades later. The footage shows what they found, a wall of ice stretching beyond the limits of geography, carved not by nature, but by something deliberate. And behind it, what appears to be a structure, an ice citadel etched with faces no historian can place. They made their way through the main passage, boots dragging across frost that hadn't melted in centuries. The first chamber held no furniture, no tools, only a black pedestal humming quietly as if waiting to be used. Further in, the rooms grew stranger, ceiling carvings that matched no known language, walls etched with symbols that glowed faintly under lantern light. And then they entered what the documents call the Celestial Room, a dome of perfect symmetry, star maps etched in mirrored eyes, spanning constellations we have yet to name. They weren't just charting the sky, they were marking something, a path, a warning, a return. And now, after nearly a century, we have to ask, were they the first to find it or simply the last to disappear?
See, my surrogate mother was Viola Armstrong. She had a son named Neil.
Oh, really?
As you know, the story goes, he went down to Antarctica, had a heart attack, stroke combo, and came back. And then there was stuff on the internet. And finally I had to look at Buzz and ask him, Buzz, what happened down there, Bud? Buzz did say one thing, and it just stuck in my head. It's the way he said it. He just said, we thought out things we shouldn't. And if Buzz saw something, I don't know what it was, but it was enough to give the man a heart attack. So if there are beings down there, I would think these beings never planned on us. They've been there, they came in millions of years ago. They've been under ice for millions of years. I don't think they were expecting us.
Let me ask the thing about Buzz Aldrin, that there was this very cryptic tweet that came out during his stay down there. He said, "We have seen the faces of evil and we're all in danger." Right. And this is right before he had his heart attack. And I can tell you, logistically, to do a medical evacuation from the interior of Antarctica is very difficult and very expensive. So something must have majorly gone wrong.
to underscore the fact that when the C-130 crew had dropped them off, they disappeared. And then when they went to try to find them, there was nothing at the National Science Foundation camp at all. Nothing.
They were
moving.
gone.
They
A
were
dozen
totally
scientists.
gone. And when they did show up, they had been missing for a couple of weeks. And Brian S. and the C-130 flight crew were then sent back. And they were expecting that they would see this group of scientists out to meet their plane, doing this, yelling something. And he said they were lined up like birds on a wire. They were all kind of next to each other, and most of them had their heads down, looking at their feet when the C-130 was pulling up. And that somebody had to go from the flight crew over to the scientists and direct them to get onto the plane. And they talked about how not one single scientist said one word. Most of them walked with their looking down at the ground. Brian said when they got them loaded up, he said to his flight chief, "What in the world? Where have they been?" And the flight chief said, "I don't know. We can't get a word out of them." And during the flight, Brian went and sat down next to one of the scientists, and he said he leaned over and touched the scientist's knee, and the man never looked up. And he said, "It was as if we were dealing with 12 or 15 people who had suffered post-traumatic shock syndrome, that they were unnaturally frozen in their position and no speaking, and that they all looked afraid." That one of the SEALs that I have talked to that is not in the video said that as they walked for a mile or 2 miles into these very strange created architectures, they reached a point where something started coming through the walls out into the air. At first, it would go in and out of visibility, and then they realized that their minds were being manipulated. And then when they could see it clearly, and it was coming in and out like a television signal in the air, it appeared to be covered with scales, like an armadillo, the surface of an armadillo. And he said, when you are face to face with something like that, and you are trained in military to kill, but you're dealing with something you've never seen, and it can go in and out of visibility, and you know that your mind is being taken over by something that you are fighting. He said that happened in one of those corridors, and that was 2012.
Government captured one of these native Antarctic people, or Agarthians as you call them, and interrogated them.
I mean, look, they had been studying this rogue country within Antarctica for decades, right? Of course they captured one of the natives. How else were they supposed to get any information on the place? Look, regardless, the things that they'd found out in the conversations that followed suit, right, were just, it puts history in a different perspective. Let's put it that way.
Wait, they were talking to this person?
Well, look.
I mean, wouldn't these people speak their own language?
Buddy, just because they have their own native language doesn't mean they don't understand others as well. Look, after they detained him, right, they figured he was going to speak in some kind of uninterpretable tongue, so they sent in a linguistic expert by the name of Pete Richards to do the interrogation, right? And so Pete sits there asking him all kinds of different questions, right, about their society, about who they are. But the guy just wouldn't say a thing. He was completely silent, right? Up until the point where Pete pulls out these pictures the agency had taken of this country's pyramids, right? And he sets the picture down as he says, "Can you tell me about these?" The guy didn't really budge, right? Like he didn't want to engage. And so Pete says, "Listen, we've seen structures like this before." He pulls out an image of the pyramids from ancient Egypt and shows it to him. And for the first time, the guy's expression just completely shifts, right? Like he was seeing something that he'd somehow seen before. And as he's staring at the image, he goes, "Second." Pete's just shocked this guy had finally spoke, right? And as he's just staring at him, a higher-up agent in the room quickly says, "Pete, what the hell's that mean?" And with a kind of just wide-eyed, shocked expression of disbelief, Pete says, "It's Egyptian. It means old friend."
Remember that person who claimed that he was expelled because of the ice wall? According to him, behind this barrier hides a perfect world where there is no war, no disease, and no pollution. He assures that our reality is something like a prison, where humanity was exiled as punishment. This idea is a key element of one version of the flat Earth theory. According to it, the planet is not a sphere, but a huge disk surrounded by an ice ring we call Antarctica. But there is another perspective. The icy border was not created to protect humanity, but to prevent us from leaving and discovering what lies beyond.
In 1968, the US and Soviet Union both abruptly pulled out of Antarctica. Public reason? Harsh weather. Real reason? They heard it. Deep beneath the ice, something spoke. Months later, seismic activity triggered a collapse near Lake Vostok. What they found? Not fossils, not aliens, but architecture. Perfect geometry. Older than anything human, and built from materials we still can't replicate. Then came the protocol. Antarctica was sealed, satellite imaging blacked out, civilian access banned. All military presence unified under one flag, the treaty. But here's what no one talks about. Every year, without fail, a team of 13 scientists is flown in. Same arrival date, same departure, no names, no media, just coordinates, and a single code name.
I don't know why they're hiding it. We began to find ancient cities that we could find because the ice was melting so quickly. And you can see the wall structure. So we found 5 cities, all right? If the ice has been there for at least 34 million years or less, that's ancient civilization that nobody talks about. Now, when we found evidence of that, when I posted it on the website, it always got blurred out.